Good evening and welcome to the September 23rd, 2014 School Committee meeting. This meeting is being recorded by Easthampton Public Access Cable, and the School Committee would like to recognize and thank Tim Riley for taping tonight's production. Easthampton Public Access Cable Station Channels 5, 19, and 20 is looking for volunteers. If anyone is interested in helping to tape city government meetings, please contact Kathy Lynch at 413-203-1360. Superintendent Follinsby, do you have some announcements for us?
I do. The next school committee meetings are October 14th and 28th, November 18th, and December 9th, 2014. There is no school on Tuesday, November 4th, due to Election Day and teacher professional development. There is no school on Tuesday, November 11th, due to Veterans Day. There is no school Wednesday through Friday, November 24th through 26th, due to Thanksgiving break. There is no school Wednesday through Friday, December 24th to January 2nd due to Christmas, New Year's, and winter break. School will reopen on Monday, January 5th, 2015. Easthampton High School SAD group, Students Against Destructive Decisions, is organizing a country concert for a cause on Saturday, October 4th, 2014. Tickets are $7 and proceeds go to raising awareness around destructive driving. Anyone interested in purchasing tickets can go to easthamptonconcert.brownpapertickets.com.
Very good.
One last would be that the elementary open houses are October 1st at 6:30. I believe they begin. I don't know about the middle school and high school.
The high school already happened.
Mm-hmm. And the middle school would be on the district calendar on the website.
Okay, very good. Do we have any correspondence?
We do not have any correspondence or gifts tonight.
Okay. So that would bring us to the public speak portion of our meeting. At this time, we invite anyone from the public who would like to come and speak to us about any topic on the agenda or not on the agenda. And looks as though no one is here to do that. So we'll move on to the Finance Subcommittee report.
Minutes are attached from our last meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes from the Finance Subcommittee meeting from Tuesday.
We need to do that.
Good.
Okay. Anything else? From
Well, that was fast.
Okay. How about the Policy Subcommittee?
We actually just met, so you have some minutes in the next package. And just to give you a heads up, at our next meeting, you will have a new policy for a first reading, the domestic violence leave policy, as well as the employee notice that goes along with that. Things to come.
Okay. Very good. Okay, Wendy, do we have a CES update?
We meet tomorrow, so I will have an update for you at the next meeting.
Okay. Very good. That brings us to Brian, our student activities update.
All right, well, there are a lot of activities going on in the public schools. Today, student government came back into play. We had class officer speeches, and election day will be tomorrow, along with student council is back underway, so all the fun representatives are back in the band room. The homecoming dance will be Friday, October 24th, followed the next day by the homecoming football game on the 25th. As Superintendent Follinsby most recently mentioned, there is the Students Against Destructive Decisions Concert for a Cause on October 4th, featuring worldwide famous country artists here in Easthampton. And also, Easthampton High School was just recently bumped up by the state to a level 1 school in the state of Massachusetts, which is great big news. There was a huge announcement and tons of celebration this week.
Excellent.
Everyone's very
Excellent.
pleased by that.
Great news. Thank you very much.
No problem. It's a pleasure.
Okay, then that brings us to the superintendent's report.
And I will kind of carry along the thread that Brian started by giving you all an update on our MCAS results. And I want to start out by saying that Polly Parker, our new Director of Curriculum, had intended to give this presentation this evening and was ill and not able to be here. So I am trying to pull it together and talked with her at length today, and if you have any questions, I think I will be able to answer all of them. I do want to say that I know there was a big celebration at the high school. I think it was yesterday.
Yep.
They had a cake and just really celebrated their success, and so they should, because they've worked very hard. I think it's important to start by saying that it is important to be clear that MCAS results are only one way that we measure achievement in our schools. We believe in educating the whole child and in providing high-quality programs to address all aspects of each student's development during his or her school years. MCAS is one way we measure our achievement in our schools. Some of you may have seen the MCAS results in the various local papers. When I was talking with Polly today and her expertise, she's getting her PhD in, as I think I've told you, psychometrics, so data is her area of expertise. And she was commenting on how these comparisons of schools are not always valid because the schools compared may have very different grade structures, facilities, and demographics in their community. So it's not necessarily comparing like schools. There's a tool on the Department of Education website called the DART tool, which compares similar schools. And that would be a better comparison of our progress on the MCAS with schools that are similar to ours in demographics and so forth. And I believe Polly's intention was to begin to look at those comparisons and develop a report for us on that. Our most exciting news, of course, is that high school moved out of level 3 and all the way up to level 1. We didn't find that out actually until the day before the results were made public, because there was some disagreement about whether we'd actually reached level 1. And in fact we did, and that's a huge credit to the high school and all the work that's been going on there. They have a wonderful professional development program and model that's going on in the high school. We have great teacher leadership. Our administrators have provided tremendous instructional leadership. And what you'll find when you go to our high school is this real culture of collaborating together to provide the very best education possible for our students. So they did a lot of good data work looking at where our students were who were having difficulties with the kinds of tasks that they had to engage in on the MCAS. And then they provided some wonderful targeted interventions. Some of these interventions were funded by grants, the after-school grants, the 21st Century grants. Unfortunately, we've lost funding from a number of those grants, but right now our curriculum director and our high school administration are trying to see if they can be creative about finding funding to continue that work. I also believe that having our new high school with the 21st Century facilities has been a huge boon to our students in terms of being able to make this kind of progress on the MCAS. They have all of the facilities, all the technology that they need to be able to do the very best that they can. Everything is there for them, and I think Brian probably would agree with me on that. It's exciting for us, and we hope that someday we have those same facilities at our other levels as well. After initial glance at the district data, per subject matter, we do see a few areas that need to be targeted. Across the board, our high needs, low income, and special populations, special education populations need extra support. We've been very successful at the high school, as I've mentioned, with these subgroups. So again, we'll bring these best practices down to the other schools. Another factor that comes into play here, as was mentioned by Shirley Gilfeather, I believe it was in last year's presentation, is what Shirley called the whack-a-mole effect. The high school was our level 3 school. It was our school in greatest need because all of our other schools were level 2, or I think they were all level 2 last year. We have had level 1 schools in the past. So we target our resources. Our resources are limited. And so we target them where the greatest need is, and you can see what happens when we're able to do that. And now that we feel like we've got the high school on good ground, we will turn those resources to the schools that have dropped into level 3. Our Maple School and our middle school, Whitebrook, have dropped into level 3. The good news is that they're just over the cusp into level 3. So with the right kinds of resources, we expect that we're going to be able to bring them back up to level 2. We're optimistic to bring them up to level 2 by next year, which would make our district a level 2 district. Your district is leveled depending on the lowest level of any one school in your district. So if even one school is in a lower level, then that's the way your district is classified. But we're very optimistic that we'll have a level 2 district next year and that our high school will remain level 1. The other good news is that we saw some very nice math results in grades 3 at Pepin. 80% of our students were in proficient and advanced. And Center's grade 3 math showed 76% of our students were in proficient and advanced. And at Maple, even though they've fallen into level 3, a little over 69% of our students in grade 3 were in proficient or advanced. So of course we want to take a look at what was going on at that grade level that helped those children be so successful and try to replicate it in other schools and other grade levels. We are moving the professional development model that exists at the high school into the middle school this year. We're very excited about that. Kelly Brown, who has spearheaded that movement at the high school, will be, well, she's already started working with Meredith Belize, our principal, and with teacher leaders in our middle school. They will be doing learning walks. They'll be using their data to determine what kinds of targeted instruction needs to occur to shore up the weak areas and the students who are having their struggles. And so we're very optimistic about having some pretty wonderful results coming out of that professional development model as well. So again, I think that some very good things are happening in our school, and of course the very best is that our high school. We really are just so proud of having a level 1 high school, and it's really quite a phenomenal achievement. So that's sort of an overview. Polly Parker would be happy to come back and do a more in-depth analysis of the data for you. But if you have any questions, I'd be happy to.
Can we just clarify for the public how many levels of classification there are for MCAS?
There are 5 levels.
So that 3 is not the lowest, just to be clear?
Good point, yes. There are 5 levels, and the 5th level is the chronically underperforming schools. There aren't too many districts or schools that are in level 5, but if a school is in level 5 for any period of time, that's when the state takeovers occur. So yes, level 3 is substantially above that. Level 4 is schools are considered among the lowest achieving and least improving schools. So we're evaluated on the achievement of our students and also on their growth. So those are the two the main indicators. At the high school, it's also graduation rate, and I think there is one other factor which escapes me at the moment.
One last question, and this maybe it's better put to Polly, but when they discuss breaking down achievement and growth, how do they assess growth for grade 3? Because that would be the first grade level that's tested. So when they're assigning a level to an elementary school, how are they determining growth?
They're doing that based on the 4th grade, 3rd into 4th grade. You're right, they can't do growth without those 2 levels. Any other questions?
So how do we publicize the more nuanced story behind what someone who just reads the chart in the newspaper would take away? And I don't mean for you to respond to that necessarily tonight, but I think that at some point it would be useful, because part of the reality of education now is marketing. So we have good news, we have good things that are going on, but sometimes it's not immediately evident when you take a quick look at a chart of numbers on a page in the Gazette. So I would ask that. And then a second question that I'm curious about is how the targeting of resources towards the students that are recognized as being the most challenging, how does that impact the targeting of resources for other students? Because again, I think one of the questions that comes up is there's always the sense that there's this trade-off between targeting resources at-risk students at the expense of at-excellent students. And I think that, again, it's a more nuanced approach, but I think that's where so people hear good news and they hear a strategy, but then they might be thinking, well, there's another shoe to drop in that. And I think knowing more about that would be great. And I think it would be neat at some point just to have Polly or Kelly, and either Vito from last year or Meredith from this year, talk a little bit about what this professional development model actually looks like, because I think it would impress parents with the reality of how hard the faculty work to grow as educators, and the fact that we're doing so much of this internally, which is economically, fiscally, we talk about how fiscally challenged we are sometimes in Easthampton. It's so tough to find a dollar. This is a great professional development model both ways, both in terms of its impact and in terms of its expense. And so I think getting a little bit more information about that would be great. So those are the three thoughts that I had in looking through it.
And I certainly think those are all very good thoughts, and I would very much enjoy having Dr. Perrone and Kelly, and there are also some other teacher leaders at the high school who've been very active in that approach, come and talk about it. Yes, we do need to think of many other ways to market the success stories in our district. It is new information to us, so we've been talking about that already in our leadership team, and Polly and I have certainly talked about it. And we can talk more in depth about how we provide support to all students, but I do want to assure you that we provide the challenges that our students who need challenge need to have. We do provide that, as well as support for the students who need more support to be successful academically. I think Brian is probably a very good example of how we also provide lots of supports to students who need and want those extra challenges. And I think what happens, what I said earlier, and what happens unfortunately a little more often, is not that we don't ever move supports from one cohort of students to another, but if we have a level 3 school in our district, that's where our resources need to go first, and that's what we would consider first, and then maybe not that we're not providing support and resources to all schools, but we would marshal what we could in extra resources, be they what they may, to those schools.
Yeah, and I think going back to what you referenced earlier, when Shirley Gilfelder made that presentation, I forget precisely how many months ago it was, but about the very cost-effective, positive results that we were getting from targeting resources in ways that produced a good return. That, again, requires some explanation in how we get that on the website, how we get that into the minds of people, and because this will come as no surprise, because I made it very plain when I ran for re-election, that if we are showing that when we spend money in this district, it produces tangible results. It doesn't go down some hole and disappear and get dispersed out and have no effect. What we've seen, both in this report confirms it again, and Shirley's report confirmed it, is that when we can provide the resources to the teachers and on behalf of our students, tangible positive results come out. So the investment is worth it. And I think that Easthampton cannot afford to not invest more, that we need to invest more because it produces good results. And this is evidence of it.
This is evidence
So
of it.
people who are concerned, and it's a legitimate concern to say, gosh, I don't want to put money into something that's not going to have an impact. We as a city have to spend our resources wisely. And I'm not talking about taking money from anywhere else. I'm talking about more money. People know that because I was very clear when I ran. Yes, I would vote to raise your taxes. Yes, I would vote to spend more on public services in this community because public services do a good job. the public services in Easthampton do a good job. And this is more evidence of how the schools are doing their part to reinforce that message.
And Nancy, because I don't think we specifically mentioned it, going along the same line. So Whitebrook and Maple went down level 3. What was the reasoning? One of
The high
reasons they went
needs,
down?
we had more high needs students
Okay.
in those two schools, and as I say, we had pulled resources
Right.
to the high school, put our resource allocations there.
And as you said, it was just on the cusp.
Just on the cusp, right. And I really am optimistic that, we will be able to be inventive about providing resources where they're needed, and that we will be a level 2 district next year. We are working very hard, and again, I also want to just say thank you to all of our staff and our administrators who put countless hours into the work that they do. And it is because of their dedication and their skill and their expertise that, we have the results that we have at our high school and at our other schools as well. In spite of the fact that we do have limited resources. We have, again, there's a dichotomy among the schools in terms of resources available. So I think that our staff, all of our staff, our custodians, our paraprofessionals, our teachers, our administrators deserve a tremendous amount of credit for the work that they do to provide this high-quality education to our students.
I agree. And the presentations that we had from the administrators and the principals was really just unbelievable. Very, very impressive.
They are an impressive group. I feel honored to be able to work with all of them.
Nancy, as a side note, moving forward, knowing that we're transitioning into the park starting this year, do we expect that our expectations for what that level might be for all of the schools next year? There may be a year or two of a learning curve adjusting to the park, but that from what Shirley had explained, that in the long term, although it was still a standardized test, that she was optimistic that that would be a truer indication of a student's skill set and cognition, so although we may see a little bump in the next year or two moving forward with park, that in the long term it'll be a better judge of where these kids are at.
That's true, Laura, and we still don't have all the information from the state, but they are trying to assure us that they have figured out a formula to equate MCAS to park, and we think that it's a wonderful opportunity for our teachers and our students to experience this assessment before it does count on its own in the following year. So
Right, because in the first year, it can't change
can't change.
our
It
level.
can't lower us.
Can't lower.
Can't lower. I thought, right, correct.
Any other questions? Okay. Then I will move on to our budget update, year-end close and preliminary update, and Andy Paquette has someone else to introduce you to this evening.
Good evening. I'm going to introduce you to one of our senior financial consultants, Krista Jardins. He's going to be joining us here in Easthampton. You're not losing me, you're gaining someone else. I'm not replaceable, let's be honest. Chris comes with close to 10 years experience on the school committee, 9 of those as school committee chair and in the community aware. He's been with us for just under 2 years. So we're kind of changing our service delivery and creating both internal redundancy and also increasing our what we provide for our services. So this is at no cost to the district, nothing, so it's something that we choose to do. So he's going to be seeing him around, as we say, around campus, and bringing his skill set to our services here for Easthampton. So,
Nice to be here.
so that being said, what we did is, based on our finance subcommittee meeting, we also wanted to do our normal year-end FY14 kind of update, and rather than killing trees, I did the summary by DESI function code to show how We ended the year, both the local budget and the primary, all the grants and funding sources that we use to supplement our operations, non-grant related. So you have that, and everything kind of fell regarding our funds to carry over into the next fiscal year in line with our budget plan for FY15. We have some, is it exactly in line? Quite honestly, no. There are some that were up, some that were down, but when you look at what we carry over, it does help out for FY15 in accordance with what we were planning on using for FY15. So, right now we're in the process of submitting, compiling the end of the year report that gets submitted to the state that determines our Chapter 70 aid. So that is, we will be submitting that. The deadline technically is September 30th, but they are going to be issuing extensions because they had a technical issue regarding at the DESI regarding some reports that we need to use to complete the report. So we have not had access to those. So, as soon as we get the extension, we'll apply for it. But it'll have no negative impact on any aid coming to the city regarding any extension. But, we're ready to go. It's just a matter of when is it that there's this one report regarding SPED information that we need to get. So I can answer any questions on FY14 if anyone has anything regarding that. I guess I would want to show one thing regarding some of the discussions we had regarding the substitutes this year. If you look and see sort of the net impact of our subline being an available balance of a negative 187,000, but then if you go up to the teacher line, the teacher classroom line, you see the positive 439. That's where we talk about when we have a long-term sub, we're charging them to the subline because we're required to report that way. But if there's the salary of the person that they're replacing in the teacher line, that's where you get that delta. So just a little, always trying to teach and clear things up. But
This is a much nicer way to see the information. And the only other thing, and now that we produce it this way, producing this, on 6/30/15 and
Yep.
having in future years
Correct.
the last sort of 2 years, so you can sort of see a 3-year rolling.
Yes.
I think it's really great.
Sure. And if we switch to FY15, if there are no questions, that is just something that I printed out now. It was at your places. This is kind of, we're trying to, I want to say step one, based on the finance subcommittee discussions we had, is to try and present information that is more fruitful, more useful for you. Sometimes we've been accused, we being TMS has been accused of getting lost in the numbers. We understand that. So what I did just for now, this is like the first blush of kind of summarizing where we are in FY15 by the major DESI function codes with descriptions, and then the comments on the right-hand side, whether or not we're on track or areas of concern by those DESI function codes. Next finance subcommittee meeting, we'll have a discussion regarding some, we had a sample that was presented that was shared with the full subcommittee to kind of see, is there other ways of looking at things, again, with the effort of making it more useful to you. This here was kind of like I said, a first blush of a high-level view of where we stand for FY15.
I have a question about FY15. In the 4,000 line, what impact, or have we not calculated any impact, or when would we see an impact in the future of the grants that were awarded for the work, specifically to White Brook? What?
For the green community?
Yes.
That won't be, until we start to actually do the projects and the discussions that we're having with the grant administrators, that is, if anything that happens this year, we may see come near the end of the year, but as of right now, that's not reflected here.
Okay. Is it expected to be done this year? I guess I didn't hear the latest update on when they thought they were going to.
I haven't heard an update.
Yeah, I haven't heard an update
No,
either.
okay.
But we've had a meeting where we had, discussions regarding the specific projects that we would look at doing, with little investment and a short turnaround on payback. So, I'll say it's in the works.
Okay.
So,
There was a meeting this week that I unfortunately missed because of family issues, but I will ask for the minutes and
I attend all of the Energy Advisory meetings, so I've been at them.
I could share the minutes out to Deb or Sue.
So what was the
You guys wanted
latest,
to see?
Karen?
Okay, so what we're doing on, on our end, and what we have done in the past, you would have probably noticed in different electric bills on schools and also city buildings, energy efficiencies, and they're just charged to the bills. Those are thankfully coming off because those efficiencies have been met. The other thing that I've been doing, and I've been working with the Energy Advisory Committee for probably about 4 months now, and we agreed at last meeting, we're just going over some final language on the contracts, is I believe it's going to be recommended to go back into electric and natural gas aggregation, which we have done for many years. This year was a little funny. The last year of it for natural gas and electricity, we were almost happy to have it end December 31st, because sometimes the first year you always save. Second year you might do okay, and the third year honestly wasn't that great of a savings, is more on the other end. So we couldn't wait for them to be over December 31st so that we could get back into what the rates were at that time. Well, exactly what happened, if anybody knows how energy is, usually January 1st, everything spiked out of control. So everybody felt it, no matter where you are. So we decided with these huge spikes, it makes it difficult to predict, what you need for your utility bills every year. So we pretty much have decided to go back into aggregation, and that way we would at least know, a sustainable amount to predict. So that's what's going to be happening in the near future, and I will advise all the, all the departments and as to what the rates that have been set in. I mean, the rates aren't obviously fantastic, but at least there's, you'd have a sustainable, stable rate. So that's what's happening on that end. As far as, and that was exactly correct regarding the green communities, you would not see that type of a savings except maybe, like you said, the end of this fiscal year type thing, but mostly, next year. The other thing that Superintendent Fallsby and I have been talking about is an additional savings. I think it was a little $6,000, Nancy, and I am going to be doing that. That'll also be, different energy savings that had like a 1-year turnaround period, and that would be for the schools. And I will be, using funds that I have in a different account, an aggregation account, to process those. So I'll be working with Hugh from TNT, same ones on the Green Committee on that. So, so we're, again, as everybody pretty much knows, trying to be as, conserve and be as energy efficient as we possibly can. We don't usually leave very many stones unturned.
Karen, did they, and it might not make sense right now, I don't know, but was there any discussion about when the identified projects that were funded, when the work will begin?
Well, that should be very, very soon.
Okay.
Any types of grants are actually a lot of times very, very difficult to keep up with. The monies don't go from year to year. Okay. So that would be, happening in this fiscal year.
All the paperwork's been
Right,
done for it.
right, exactly. The paper, it's already been prepped, as signing the contracts and that. So it's, it's just going to would be happening very soon, because they're very timely. Sometimes difficult to achieve everything in the same, during that period, but mandated.
So going along those lines, what we've done, and if you look at some of the other comments, and based on the finance subcommittee, one thing that we need to make clear, we share with the finance subcommittee I'll say the precarious nature that we found ourselves in FY15, and quite honestly we still are, in that we've had there was a significant increase in our enrollment at CTEC, which was not budgeted for. We had budgeted an 8% increase, which covered some of it, but we actually saw an additional, I think it was 28 students enrolling to go to C-Tech. So we are able to absorb that by, as normally happens over the summer, we had some students leave the district that were in special education programs that left out of state, so it wasn't like we were fiscally responsible for them. So that, when we met with the special education personnel director, that came to light. So we were able to sort of net that increase with those tuitions. The issue becomes, quite honestly, is that right now we have no reserves other than anything that comes up now that we have not budgeted for will call for us to tap current year revenues, i.e. school choice. And we had to tap into some of circuit breaker last year, but it would potentially result in the same thing happening again this year with any unanticipated expenses. So that's a double hit because, as you know, we like to try and keep our prior year reserves to use for subsequent year budgeting. If we have a hit and if we need to use it, if the school committee were to so choose, then it would be revenues that we would not have available for FY16. So tight is an understatement as to how things are for FY15. Not to rain on any.
Thanks, Andy.
Any questions on 15?
Thanks for laying this out so clear for us non-number people.
Sorry. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Andy.
Thank you very much.
I also, if I could just add as a comment, when I signed the warrant and looked through, I had a set of questions for different line items, and with Sue Colby's help, Nancy and Andy were able to get answers right away to what some of the descriptions. When you go through the budget, some of the stuff is pretty clearly self-explanatory, but some of the names of the companies and vendors that we pay, if you were to look at that, why are we spending $17,000 on that? I wouldn't know, but to ask, and got prompt, clear responses. So thank you, Andy, for that. And thank you, Sue and Nancy, for helping with it.
And just along those lines, Maria, our accounts payable person, has also said that she, if any of you are coming to sign warrants and you have a question about any of the line items, that she can answer those for you. So don't hesitate to ask.
And she's phenomenal.
She's very
And she's
good.
the one that processes all the invoice, so she knows them inside and out.
Yeah.
She's phenomenal.
She's very good.
She's always answered all my
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, thank you very much. So moving on to the minutes from the last meeting.
A motion to approve the minutes from the school committee meeting regular session on September 9th, 2014.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And warrants and payroll?
Motion to approve the school payroll dated September 18th, 2014, in the amount of $443,999.06.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, one abstention?
Motion to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated September 18th, 2014, in the amount of $240,718.01.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. That is it for warrants and payroll.
Okay. Nancy, do you want to comment on the letter from Dr. Perone?
Certainly. Dr. Perone came to me and wanted to send a letter to you school committee members asking you to close the remaining school choice seats that we opened earlier in the year. You opened earlier in the year. And this is because he proposed those seats before the 2015 budget was completed. Once we had eliminated the positions that we did, we had fewer course selections available, and what the guidance department is finding is that it's very difficult to now schedule anyone into a complete high school program, and so we need to request that those seats are closed so that we so that we can maintain the program that we have.
Um,
I have a question about the logic behind that. Wouldn't that, again, and my agenda's clear here, were we able to retain those positions? And with the attractiveness that our high school program offers, there's as many, I forget, I didn't add them all up in the letter, but 3, 8, 16 to 20 students, all of which represent revenue to the city in excess of the amount that it would have required to pay those teachers. But because we don't know that ahead of time, the nature of the way the budget works.
Exactly.
Can I ask a question? What would the process be? Or is there a because how does the process work in Easthampton for people applying for school choice for the high school specifically? Was there a lottery? Is there a wait list now?
There doesn't need to be a lottery or a wait list if all the positions you have, if there still are positions open and you've taken people in. So that's the case at the high school. You don't need to do a wait list or a lottery if there are positions open.
Right.
In our elementary schools, we have a wait list because we get more applications than the positions we have available.
Okay. So these that he has currently open, we aren't aware of any student who's interested in any of those slots today. He's closing them down to prevent them coming in mid-year.
Exactly. We just don't have the personnel to absorb more students right now.
Is that typical that that many students would come in through the school year?
No, not necessarily. I think that Dr. Perrone has opened a good number of slots because I think every year we're getting more and more students. And it hadn't been a problem before because, we didn't necessarily fill them all, but we had enough personnel to absorb anybody who did come and want to have a choice slot at our high school. But this year, it's not the case.
And if we have any families who move into town with high school-age children.
We have to take them.
Right.
So that's the other consideration. You do have to make sure that you've left some room for any families that might move in during the year.
Is there a motion?
So I make a motion to close the remaining choice seats at Easthampton High School.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.